Hello, everyone. Dr. Jim Hoven here from the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, and I'm so excited to be with you today because today, just like every day, I have the chance to visit with someone who is so amazing and cool in what they're doing and who they're doing it for that I just couldn't wait to bring this to you. And this special guest, Mr. Rudy Gonzales, is from a dear, dear friend of ours who actually is a key team member in our organization, Tammy Quintana. And so she has connected with Rudy and known him and was kind enough to bring him to us. And I can't wait for you to hear the story of this incredible man. And not only that, but what he's doing through the Servicios de la Raza organization here in Denver. And I think you're going to be amazed. And I think it's going to inspire you to A, do something like what he's doing in your own community, or B, maybe even get involved in what he's doing and he and his team. And it's a growing team. It's an expanding team. And I can't wait to share this information with you. So without any further delay, Rudy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doctor, right?
So okay. They say.
Thank you, Doctor. Rudy Gonzales. I'm President CEO for Servicios de la Raza.
Yes. Well, I had the chance to learn about you guys from the outside recently, in that we at Ramos Law are always looking to partner and connect with different service-based organizations. And as it turns out, we have been working with several over the years, and Tammy brought your information to me, and I had a chance to review it with our team, and I was fascinated. I'm like, can we get this person to come on the show and share what all you're doing? So can you give us what you guys do in a nutshell, kind of in just a thumbnail, and then we'll go deeper into the stuff, but just kind of an overview of how you serve the community and define the community that you do serve.
Well, it would probably have to be a coconut, so a little bigger nut, right?
Okay.
But the organization, we are in our 50th year as an organization. That was Chicano and Chicana founded in 1972 in Northwest Denver, by a bevy of Chicano and Chicana community people that included people that worked for agencies within Denver, people who came from different communities in Denver, and it was what I call a birth child of the Chicano movement, in that it was an agency that was born out of the movement where the concepts of self-determination and autonomy were extremely important.
Were they coming into the community at that time in a different way when you say the movement?
Yes, and it's actually some of the founders also were members of the Crusade for Justice, which was an organization that was founded by my father, Rodolfo Corky Gonzales, in 1965. And that was an organization that really, as the leader of Servicios de la Raza for the past 14 years, I've kind of emulated in rebuilding the organization that is now Servicios de la Raza to be that strong, not just service organization, but also advocacy and activist organization.
I love that
is
so
civically
much.
Engaged at many levels. And so much so, but again, we're in our 50th year. Past March 2022, we turned 50 years old.
Man, you look great for 50,
yeah,
right?
I know.
Hey, I want to ask you.
I'm way past that, Doc.
I know. I mean, just the organization. You look less than 50. Hey, I want to ask, because you mentioned your father and the organization that he had started and how there was some emulation of that in Servicios. Did you grow up in a family of service, of, we'll call it nonprofit for lack of a better term, of giving back to the community? Is that what your family was all about, and that's how you got so interested?
Well, exactly. I'm a child of what we call the Chicano movement.
Define that.
And the Chicano movement was a movement that was kind of emulated the Black civil and human rights movement of the 50s and 60s and 70s. The Chicano movement really took hold in the 60s and really kind of apexed and came to a pinnacle in the 70s, right? With very much influence. At that time in this country, it was a black and white situation. And the Chicano movement really raised significantly the profile of Mexican-American people living in our historic homeland, which is the Southwest here of the United States, which many years ago, over 170, was actually Mexico. And so was lost in the Mexican-American War of 1848. And so overnight, I became, Mexican-American, or my ancestors.
Right.
Anyway, and my dad used to call us and used to say, and pretty accurately saying, we became second-class citizens and that we became orphans of Mexico and stepchildren of the United States.
What a great description. I mean, it's horrific. It shouldn't be that way, but wow, that's profound.
And so my father was born in Denver in 1928, and he was actually became very famous as an athlete and became Denver's #1 athletic drawing card in the late 40s, early 50s as one of the top fighters in the world.
Really?
Yes, as a professional fighter. He was one of the first amateur national champions in Denver's history in 1947 as a bantamweight. And then as a pro, he got as high as a #3 ranking in the world. And that's when there was only 8 weight divisions, when boxing was one of the king of sports, not football.
Yes.
It was horse racing, baseball, and boxing. And he was idolized in Denver. He was the golden boy. And you can go and do your own research and all of the Denver Post and Rocky Mountain News. And he was front page sports news from 1946 through 1955, his retirement.
Wow. And so he had this hard side of a fighter and a
literally
world
fought
contender.
his way out of abject poverty. He was a child of the Depression.
Yeah. But then how did he get this side for, I want to help and start this organization?
I'll tell you what, this man was a piece of work. He was a special spirit. We're never going to see another one like him. Not in my lifetime, I know. And absolutely fearless. And, whatever he put his hand to, he was successful. He helped Quig Newton become mayor in 1947 as a 19-year-old helping his campaign.
Good grief.
So he got involved in Democratic politics. Then he started his own businesses. He had the first sports bar in Denver, Corky's Corner, on 38th and Walnut, when he was still fighting. Had his brothers running it down on 38th and Walnut in East Denver, called Rhino now, And so, and then he left all that, and he was a voracious reader, #1, and loved reading and taught us all, and really made sure we all became avid readers early on, and that has just carried us through.
Big family?
6 sisters, a brother, and 47 nieces and nephews now.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, one of my nieces is a state representative, Serena Gonzales Gutierrez, who just announced she's running for at-large city council for Denver, and she's just won her seat back for House District 4. My son is in D.C. He's been there, Sergio Gonzales, since 14 years. He went out with Senator Bennett. He helped craft he was the only actually Mexican-American or Chicano to serve on the Gang of 8 and as the senior aide to Senator Bennett, and helped craft the Reform Act law. That should have passed then. We wouldn't be having all these problems that we continue to manifest here in this country with our with immigrants and people coming for a better life. And, and so he went out there, and then he became Deputy Chief of Staff of USOPM with the White House under Obama, and then he left and went with Hillary. We all know how that turned out. And then he joined Kamala Harris as her senior aide for 3 years.
Wow.
Now he's the head of the National Immigration Hub.
So you guys have
Congress and White House on humanitarian immigration reform.
That is nuts to me, how much, how
Very
deep
proud
the
of it.
roots are for service in your family. Is that how you got to Servicios?
It's my trip was a long one in getting to Servicios, but when the opportunity came to be considered to be hired by the board at that time, the board, the board of directors of that at that point. I jumped at it, and it was a circle for me because it was coming home, so to speak, to. And I worked for the state. I worked for the city. I've had a lot of different experiences. I'm a former educator, and
What level?
Secondary and well, actually, I opened K-5 startups in Phoenix and Ohio.
Nice.
For a year, and administrated the school I started in Youngstown, Ohio, for a year, in the barrio there, in the ghetto there, the Black and Puerto Rican ghetto, and but so pre-K through 12 I've taught, and
Wow.
so yeah. It's been, no, not pre-K, probably K through 12. But former educator, English teacher, did a lot of English teaching, ESL, writing, literacy, vocabulary, grammar,
So cool.
reading, And so, yeah, a lot of different experiences. But getting the Servicios job, I was 50 years old. It was like coming home. It was going to lead albeit it was in 3 months to 6 months from closing. It was in really, really significant deficit. But being able to come home and work to rebuild an organization that was so venerable in our lifetimes, especially in the Chicana community in Denver, that you either got services there, you worked there, or you served on the board there if you were Chicana in Denver. Servicios was really well known since it opened, right? And it was like completing a circle in my life to come home and run this organization and rebuild it in a way that I knew, that I grew up in a way that treated everyone with dignity and respect. I call it cultural responsivity. That's what we use. I don't believe you can be competent in a culture. I think because I'm not just talking ethnic and linguistic. I'm talking the culture of the streets, of poverty, of prisons, of gangs, of hopelessness, of nihilism. There are a lot of cultures. Being responsive to a culture means you meet the people where they're at. You respect their lived experiences. You engage them in their own healing. And you hold them responsible too. It's like education. You got to hold the youth responsible to their own academic achievement. You got to get them responsible, but you got to engage them. It's about building relationships because I found as an educator, you can't teach content without relationships.
Yes.
And so, but it's simply about dignity and respect.
What do you think? You just brought up such a important concept, at least in my mind, this concept of cultural accountability, cultural investment, cultural growth and building. Do you have a thought or an opinion on, I'm sure you do, on how do we cross-pollinate the different cultures so that we don't come into an isolation of, our culture's the best, and if you're not part of us, then you're them? How do we go about doing an inclusive culture to keep our self-identity, whether it's, it doesn't matter. Pick the ethnicity or the race or whatever you want to pick, or the religion. Pick the camp. But then how do you say, but yet we were all still part of the human tribe? Is that because you're coming from such a unique perspective in a culture? Is there a way to bridge that in your mind? And how do you do it?
I think back to my father who did such incredible work in his lifetime. And he wrote a poem that's an epic poem, and actually Googled, and you can Google him. There's about 200 pages on him, and also you can find his the doodle that Google dedicated to him a year ago, October 1, 2021. 2021. They over a year ago, 24-hour dedication their doodle to him. I had worked with Google in 2018 over 3 days with their teams from San Francisco and New York, and the artists and the film teams, and they put the whole film together on him. They dedicated the doodle for 24 hours internationally. We had 148 media organizations from 5 continents in 67 languages do a story that day.
Wow.
His doodle.
And so his poem connects the dots.
His poem is considered the epic poem, the clarion call, the precursor of Chicano literature and arts in the United States. And it was called I Am Joaquin. It's called I Am Joaquin. Yo soy Joaquin. And it was sort of an anthropological dig of his own identity and finding his own identity, who he was and who we are as a people in the process. And if you read that poem, and I had my professors at Metro when I was in college and got my degree in English, right, literature and writing, they'd say, you know, we read that poem, Rudy, and your dad's a humanitarian, because he was very controversial, and we are controversial people because we will push back when it's around equity, justice, and peace. We're going to stand up, and we're going to show up and stand up, right, for our communities. And the litmus test is easy. If it's people or community, we're going to be there. And that's any people or community. Mm-hmm. When I say the culture of poverty, you know, I mean, we serve 30% Caucasian, 30% Black, and 30% brown people coming out of our prison systems in Colorado.
Through Servicios.
We are the #1 reentry program in the state, community reentry program. Our recidivism rate, with over close to 3,000 served at this point, is less than 4%.
What's the average? Because that's way below the
good
average.
rate in Colorado is 45%.
So 10x, 10 times 45%,
better. A bad year is 70%. I know. I worked for, I helped build the youth offender system in the 90s. And I worked for DLC for 5 years. So I really understand that penal system.
Yeah.
You're right. And so, yes, it's an amazing, I mean, last year with 450 people coming out of prison, we had a 0.96 recidivism. Come on, that's crazy.
What do you attribute that to?
I attribute to what I call cultural responsivity. Some of our staff have done 21, 31, 11, 3 years in both federal and state pens.
Okay.
And so they know how to work with their clientele. They know how to keep them responsible, how to keep them engaged, how to get them engaged, how to get them excited, motivated, and inspired around the work to be successful and not, do life on the installment plan, which my dad also used to say.
Wow. Is there a way to scale the program that you guys have to, if it's that effective for recidivism?
Well, we have about 19 community reentries around that we work with that are partner organizations around the state. And so we do share what we do and stuff. But, it's just, it's our people. We have some incredible people. I've been very fortunate in the hires that we've made over my 14 years. And we've lost our share of people. There's turnover that happens. But I think we've gotten so much better at this point in building the organization, especially in the last 2 years, of building a strong organization with a strong administration that really thinks about and takes care of our staff. Because social services, you're only going to be successful if you put community first, program second, and you last. And that's tough. Yeah. And so we've got to be, as an administration, I got to be, as a president, CEO, very, very cognizant, very aware of my staff around their own vicarious trauma, their own mental health and health. And so we do. I provide almost 80 hours a year off of administrative time. I'll add time to a holiday. I'll make a 3-day holiday a 4-day. We will shut down during this holiday from Christmas through New Year's because it's very slow, number one, but also it's important. It's important to do that for staff. We've finally started our 401k. We've done a lot of things to really help develop a healthy staff that is going to, and plus, I think we offer, excuse me. Plus, I think we offer something a lot of other organizations don't. We offer a purpose bigger than ourselves. Our mission statement is to provide and advocate. Those two verbs are just as important as each other. Culturally responsive, essential human services and opportunities. So that means advocate. We are also, we're doing half the job if we're just serving the problem and we're not addressing the systemic and root issues of poverty.
So let's go to that for just a second. And before we go on to poverty, because I want to get across in the show the variety of services that you offer, because
Sure.
it's really intriguing and amazing to me. But kind of staying on the theme that we did with the reentry program, folks coming out of incarceration, when you get them, it sounds like you're working with partner agencies, you're doing all this. I can't get past the low recidivism rate.
Recidivism?
Thank you. Between the two of us, we get it right. And so I'm thinking, why isn't this applied, when I say scalable, why isn't it applied at a state or a federal level in order to try to drive those numbers closer to your numbers?
Because, Doctor, it's been what I've been harping about for 14 years, and we're starting to finally to get government's ear around it. I've worked for both the state and I've worked for the city of Denver Human Services. For the state, I worked for the Department of Corrections, helped build the youth offender system in the 90s under Governor Romer and Executive Director Zavaris, who is Denver's ex-police chief under Pena. And it's what I say, is government, they really try at doing programming, but they're lousy at it. And what they need to start doing is identifying the organizations, specifically the organizations of color that don't have capacity but are doing great work in our communities, and help them, number one, bring resources to build that capacity, and number two, continue those resources to serve community.
Beautiful.
And with cultural representation and cultural responsivity, that's what it takes. And when government does that, when they partner and put the gas in our tank and let us drive, they're going to be successful in programming, and we're going to be successful in programming and serving our community and expanding that programming and meeting the needs, the huge needs of community. People ask me, Rudy, you can't do everything, and that's right, but we're going to damn well try, because the quote is, the social determinants of health are vast. It warrants a vast response.
Yes, and you guys are providing that vast response. In another direction, you help kids. So you have people that are coming out, transitioning from one life to another, but also you have these children that are transitioning from one way of life to another, if they're going into a different level of school or a different college or whatever. Talk about the services that you guys have for children.
Well, our behavioral health services, we started in 1972. Our mission statement was to provide mental health services in Spanish. And, as I just stated, the mission statement, we've simplified it a little more and kind of grew it out and made it more inclusive, right? Essential human services, cultural responsivity to all, right? And opportunities too, not just services, but opportunities to stabilize, to thrive. And so with youth, we offer a lot of youth leadership programming, which we do cohorts of 4 months, 2 Saturdays a month, with the graduation in June around leadership. But it's steeped in our heritage. We also teach our culture, our history, our heritage to our Latino youth, that they don't get the learning that they do not get in public schools or charter schools. In this country. And so something that's going to help them build their self-esteem, build their self-confidence, help them to understand who they are and develop and manifest that identity into success, right? And keep their, stand tall and keep your head high. And we come from greatness. And we have been huge contributors to the building of this country. And so things like that. But we also provide intervention, mental health intervention around the risk factors of suicide, of of dating violence, of sexting, of bullying, all these factors of, and now pandemic, right? And isolation and nihilism. And when I say nihilism, I'll say it's feeling worthless, and like I don't have nowhere to go. And I don't want to live. I don't want to go on. Suicidal ideation, right? And then we bring it together, and we do it in both languages, in both Spanish and English, because we find our immigrant refugee children, are acclimated a lot quicker than their parents who are at home, and give that some time, and there's going to be a lot of friction happening.
Yes.
In the family. And so then we include the family in that too, the parents, and it's a 12-week session, right?
And the leadership side.
Parallel, and they come together for 4 weeks after 8 weeks, and we do them to strengthen family. And it's called Familias Adelante. And then, we're also working with Hoven to implement Jóvenes Nobles, which is a healing, indigenous kind of healing module that is multiple weeks and also can be taught bilingual.
What does that look like? Like what's within the modules?
Well, I mean, it's talking about, it also exposes them to sweat lodge, to what we call a nipi up here in North America, and they call temazcals in Mexico and South America. So these are purification ceremonies, prayer ceremonies, healing ceremonies that every indigenous culture in this globe has, right? So even our Caucasian, our Irish, and then they have the purification lodges, right? Mm-hmm. Where you go get clean.
Yeah, sauna type things.
Yeah, right, right. And so these are things that they're exposed to, right? Exposed to, different ways to come together and talk, right? The talking circle, the talking stick, right? The indigenous way of coming together to discuss and bring out problems and help with those problems, right?
Man.
And so it's a healing. It's a journey of healing. Jóvenes Nobles, which is noble youth, translated. And so, and Familias Adelante is families forward, right? Going forward in a good way, in a productive way. So we do, and we also provide clinical behavioral health, both substance misuse, peer counseling, also clinical intervention with LPC, LAC therapists who are bilingual, and for youth 11 years on up.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you also provide counseling on financial health and wellness as well, right?
Yes,
so we're taking the whole family.
This is a behavioral health program.
Yeah.
Then we have a financial empowerment program, and that's around financial health, and that's around budgeting we're now also doing tax literacy with that financial empowerment. So it's getting people how to build wealth. What does that mean, right? You can be rich. It's not generational.
Yes.
And you could be broke. Yes. But generational wealth, what does that mean? Handing wealth down to your children and your children's children. And it's also an indigenous concept, because in indigenous thinking, we think about the next 7 generations. And in terms of how do we leave the earth, how do we care for the earth, around the environment, things like that,
so
right?
So beautiful.
And so, and so behavioral health, we have a workforce development program. We're even training and certifying for forklift and flaggers for flagging. We've got a forklift donated by our development department. Lisa Vega Fields knew somebody who knew somebody and got us a forklift. So we got certified, and now we do forklift classes. We offer our building and our space to places like GRASS, Gang Rescue and Support Project, that do a Thursday night group with youth there. And they do an incredible job in gang intervention programming. And they use the same programs that we use of Jóvenes Nobles. We have a benefits enrollment help program, which is education literacy around health access and using your health insurance, getting you insured first. CHIPS Plus, Medicaid. We even do Medicare for our seniors. We run the Mexican consulate, Ventanilla de Salud, which is translated window to health, where we were serving pre-pandemic, and it's getting back there again, 25,000 a year statewide.
Yeah, I saw that.
In health literacy, we're doing cholesterol, now mammogram and A1C screenings. We have a Mexican doctor who's a surgeon oncologist, born in Ohio, but raised in Aguascalientes. And him and his dad built a hospital there. But he's here with us, been with us now 6 years, Dr. Gonzales Fisher. You'll like to see him, get him on the show. He's really incredible. He's got his MPH at the University of Colorado School of Public Health, too. He is our voice around health equity and also COVID messaging and vaccinations. We're now doing Mpox. We're still doing COVID. We're doing 200 flu shots next week somewhere. We just did we're still doing this. We're at over 12,000 vaccinations across the state, from the San Luis Valley to La Junta to Yuma to Grand Junction and all of Denver Metro, where we have one of 11 mobile health units, which is a rolling doctor's office funded by the Mexican Department of Health in the United States. Don't ask me why our own government don't fund us for one.
Yeah.
But, that's sarcastic.
Yeah, no,
anyway,
I get it. Yeah.
And then we have the largest victim services program.
Describe that one. What does that look like?
We serve DV victims, domestic violence, sex assault, trafficking, and general crime victims for 4 judicial districts. That includes 10 counties.
So would that mean they would be...
We serve them from time of victimization when they all the way... We take them all the way through the legal system.
Would they be referred to you by a hospital, or how do they enter the system?
We train a lot of the law enforcement agencies, the sheriff departments, the PDs, and a lot of the municipalities in Denver Metro. We train them on how to be more culturally responsive to our communities.
So then they would see that and say, hey, you need to go see these guys in one of their calls.
98% of our clients in there are monolingual. So all of our victim advocates and our case managers are bilingual and fluent. And so, we have a crisis line 24/7, and over last year we had I think 15,000 calls on it.
Wow! So over 1,000 calls a month.
We served close to 1,800 victims last year, and so again, 10 counties all the way to Kiowa. So we're talking Judicial District 18 is 6 counties. It's Arapahoe, Douglas, it's Albert, Lincoln, it's Kiowa. I think I'm forgetting one.
Man, that's amazing though, that you guys have that kind of reach. When it comes down to
we have people that will drive from Craig, Colorado. That's 400 miles away.
That's a long
Alamosa,
way. Yeah.
Trinidad, Gypsum in the Western Slope. Mm-hmm. They will drive because they can't get those services in Spanish out there in their neck of the woods. That's why we're moving statewide, and we've started a brick and mortar in Pueblo. And we have 3 programs running now. We just got up to 8 staff, and we're doing reentry. We started with behavioral health. How do you like that? It's pretty serendipitous that we started in Pueblo the way we started in Denver in 1972 in North Denver. With
same basic program.
Behavioral health. Same basic program. Then we got reentry, and then we got benefits enrollment. And benefits is insurance enrollment, SNAP benefits, getting people enrolled in access to benefits to improve their lives.
Where do the basic emergency services fall within the programs? I was looking
Everybody uses our basic emergency services. It's case management, but it's the food pantry.
Yeah.
Food security. It's huge, and it's become so... I think elevated by the pandemic around food insecurity, right? Mm-hmm. And this, not just this state, the city, but this country. And it's a huge issue as we move forward. There was an article in the New York Times recently around the fact that prices are just accelerating
through the roof
like a rocket, right? And our income isn't. And so, there's going to be some really, I think, some really sensitive times coming where we need more resources to build. That we're open all the time as a emergency service program. We also do clothing there. We even opened a pet food pantry because we found that our seniors, our elders, were taking their food, and some of them disclosed that they were using some of their food that they got to use for them, or to feed their pets, because they couldn't afford it. And so we said, no, let's do pet food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a connection to the homeless community as well?
Well, we serve unhoused all over. I mean, we are now just become the sole source contractor for the STAR program in Denver.
Explain the STAR program.
That is the Street Team Assistant Response Program. It is a program that was brought and emulated from the Cahoots program in Eugene, Oregon, which is a non-police response model. Right now, that program saves Eugene, Oregon, $8.6 million a year in police response. And
so the police are doing
it's
other
tied
things
in
more
with
high
911.
value.
Yes,
Gotcha.
they're going to the more elevated, and Cahoots and STAR is to address the low level kind of misdemeanor issues that takes police time away from dealing with
from keeping people safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping people safe and violent crime, and significant crime. And so we have just got the sole source to provide the human service side of the programming with 911, our partners, Denver Health and Wild Power.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
we're ramping that up. We've got 7 organizations working with us throughout all corners of the city and county of Denver proper, because that's where it's going to be centered right there. It's all the funding through the city. And we're hopeful to be live with that, hopefully by no later than the end of March.
where do all these resources come from? Like if someone's listening to this, they're like, this is overwhelming. They do so much. Like you say, the need is broad. And so we got to make a vast attempt to try to get to everything. How do you guys get funded to try to take care of this? And how big is your organization?
The thing is I like to joke that we don't juggle tennis balls, we juggle bowling balls at Servicios. But once I was able to build an administration with funding that I received in 2020, get that, the pandemic, we actually raised $5 million during the pandemic when a lot of nonprofits didn't do so well and maybe went the other way. We actually doubled down and really got to work, right? And we were an essential organization. We were busy during the pandemic. We learned how to serve virtually and remotely, but we still were meeting one-on-one with people who actually really needed one-on-one services, and we did that throughout 9 months of shutdowns, pretty much, 3 months each, through January 2021. And the fact that I was able to get these significant dollars in from our partners, Colorado Health Foundation, Gary Investments, Caring for Colorado, that helped me build a crack development team, a crack fiscal management team, and even human resources. Oh my God, which we didn't have for 12 of my 14 years. And it was tough, because we were on what we called a starvation diet in nonprofit. Our programs were funded, but administration, it was like me and another person running around like chickens without heads, trying to get things done and keep everything, moving forward. And once I was able to get real teams of excellent staff in who were experts and who knew their stuff, oh my God, we just jumped. Our budget went and tripled in 18 months.
Wow.
So we tripled our budget. We tripled our staff in 18 months. And we are again, in a really significant period of growth, and we're going to continue to build like that and now develop sustainability for the organization, because I'm not going to be there forever, and I want it to be able to be celebrating 50 years in 50 years.
In 50 more years.
In 50 more years, another anniversary, you know?
Yeah, you're creating a legacy project, aren't you?
I don't know. You know, I still feel I'm just living the legacy of my father,
Wow.
what he did, and pushing that forward, you know?
Yeah,
And
you guys are
hopeful
looking to, you're at 80 people roughly right now, is that right?
Yeah,
Am I right
over
there?
80 staff, and we're still hiring. We're going to be over 100 staff within the next 90 days.
And how do volunteers work in your world?
We have a lot of volunteers who work in our emergency services program. A lot of volunteers who work at our events, which happen almost monthly now. Drive me crazy because we're just always busy. But, you know, that's how I grew up in the movement. I remember being busy from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., you know, whether it was boxing or dance practice for folklorico, or teatro practice or guitar practice, or marching and protesting, or, you know, we were doing some, or school, because the school started. My father founded Escola Tlatelolco in 1970. So that's where I graduated from in 76, you know. Right down there in Cap Hill, man, 16th and Downing.
Good times.
Yeah. And so, you know, we are working to really now develop an incredible staff, and also identify staff members who are going to carry this organization forward in doing the work that needs to be done. It's an important organization. I think it is, and I'm biased, but I'll admit it. I think we're the most important organization doing not just services but advocacy in the state of Colorado, and I just want to be able to make sure that we develop our young staff to carry that forward in that spirit of advocacy, and that spirit of service to others, and that spirit of servant leadership.
Oh, I love that so much. And for me, when you talk about the concepts of service to others and servant leadership, that goes across cultures. That's a human thing.
It's a human thing.
If we can just get that
and
down.
we serve everybody who comes through our doors. Well, we're experts in our Spanish-speaking population. We're experts in Chicana populations, which, by the way, we're like 1.5 million in this state.
Huge
but we're
component
still
of
800,000 are Chicanos like me, who didn't learn Spanish, aren't too bilingual, you know. I get through it, and I can, you know, it has to be very slow. Don't go machine gun on me. Don't go staccato, or you lose me. But, you know, but again, that's how diverse we are, right? We're not monolithic. And so, but we're an organization, I think, that builds the bridge between the two, because they are different. The culture is a little different, and significantly different in some areas, right? And we have regional cultures from Mexico, from Central America, South America, regional languages too, you know, and dialects and stuff. So, you know, but I think this organization does such incredible work. We have staff from Honduras, El Salvador, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and then Chicanos like me.
Wow, Rudy, you guys are doing great work. If someone, if someone wanted to get involved or learn more about your amazing organization, how could they learn more, reach out, connect with you in some way?
Well, they can call 303-458-5851 and ask for Lisa Vega Fields, our manager of development, and talk to her about opportunities around volunteering, around donating. And since we're coming to the year, end of the year, if you have extra wealth laying around, and you know, we're a 501c3, and we'll give you a letter with our tax ID number, and you can take it off your taxes for 2022. We are this next Wednesday, we'll be out in our parking lot with a bunch of other resource vendors, and we'll be having our Fiestas Felices, which is our Christmas celebration and giveaway, distribution with over 500 turkeys and hams and full food boxes that will feed a family of 4 through 10 for weeks. Wow. And, if they're like my mom, they'll able to keep that turkey going with leftovers for a month. I remember eating turkey cereal on day 29. Anyway, I'm kidding, but Mom was a great cook. Anyway, we have close to 1,000 gifts to go out to community, and then coats, and also we're also working to drive some capacity to also serve our immigrants who recently arrived to Denver and helping the city deal with that.
So good.
Yeah.
Rudy, I want to ask you one final question. And I think
By the way, that's December 21st, next Wednesday from 9 o'clock. First come, first serve, guys.
First come, first serve.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something as a final question. Has there been a piece of advice that either you were given from your father or someone else, or you learned along the way that you feel is a paramount piece of your foundation, a pillar, if you will, that you would share with me and the audience, that we might incorporate that advice into our lives to help us, have a higher quality life in some way?
Well, I think the biggest thing probably I learned from my dad is that really the authentic purpose in our lives is service to others. It's in service to others.
Man, when we can find that, we find peace, right?
I think so. We find peace. We find reward. We find. I've found. I've worked in 1,000 different jobs. I never was in a job more than 6 years. Some as short as few months. And this one, 14 years, it's the end. It took me 50 years to find what I love. And it's not a job if you love what you do. And Servicios is not work. It's not an organization. It's a movement.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I have been moved by the info you shared and the way you shared it with your passion. I can't thank you enough for joining us. I look forward to a long relationship together in the future. And
great.
I certainly wish you all the best, Rudy. Thank you for joining us.
Well, igualmente, Doctor, on all of your sentiments, especially the long relationship.
There we go, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
You enjoy the rest of your day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this made sense to you, whether you're watching or listening, please share this message. And even if it's a message of hope and service and authentic purpose, please send this to someone and use it yourself, because information without execution is nothing more than wasted time. So remember, every day you can and should make a difference. We believe in you, and we can't wait for you to tune in to the next episode.